Live, Chairman.
Good afternoon, members, officers and members of the public. Welcome to this South East Planning Area meeting on Wednesday the 2nd of September. My name is Councillor Michael Helm and I'm Vice Chairman of this committee, deputising for Councillor Richard Dewick, the Chairman. This meeting is held under new COVID regulations which came into effect on the 4th of April in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are just a few housekeeping issues to run through. First of all, please can I ask everyone present at this meeting to ensure your microphone remains muted and your video feed is off when not addressing the committee. This will reduce background noises and avoid any unintentional disturbances. This meeting is being hosted remotely, streamed live and recorded, and being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please use the chat function of the meeting to indicate if you wish to speak. Bernard will then invite you at the appropriate time. Members are reminded that apart from indicating you wish to speak or that you have to leave the meeting, the chat function should not be used for questions or any other purposes. Members, when speaking and referring to the agenda papers, please reference a page or paragraph number and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. When invited to speak, please ensure you turn your microphone and video on. Now may I ask officers taking part in the meeting to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. I am Matthew Lee, Lead Specialist for Place here at Malden District Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. Michael Johnson, Lead Specialist Development Management.
Thank you. Anne Keane.
Good afternoon, Chairman. I'm Annie Keane, Senior Caseworker, Development Management.
Thank you. Louise Staplehurst.
Good afternoon, Chairman. I'm Louise Staplehurst and I'm a Specialist in Development Management.
Thank you. Bernard, is there anybody else? Bernard and then anybody else?
No, Chairman, I don't believe there's anybody else. Bernard Casey, clerk to this afternoon's committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernard, can you please carry out a roll call, please?
Could you please put me down as being in attendance?
Yes, we will do that after the roll call, Councillor Morris. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Members, I will call your name in alphabetical order as usual. Councillor Bassinger.
Good afternoon, Bernard. I'm present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beale.
Present. Good afternoon, everyone.
Councillor Bell.
I'm present. Good afternoon, everyone.
The Boyce.
Here.
Councillor Channer.
I'm present, Bernard. And good afternoon, everyone.
Councillor Fluker.
Present.
Councillor Helm is present. Councillor Hull.
Present.
Councillor Skeens.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Present, Bernard.
Thank you. Now may I ask those members in attendance to please introduce themselves.
Good afternoon.
Councillor Mays.
And Abel.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
May I now have the apologies for absence, please, Bernard?
Yes, we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Dewick.
Okay.
What a surprise.
Pardon? I'll carry on.
Sorry?
We'll carry on with the meeting. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of August 2020, founded on pages 7 to 16, are approved and choose accurate record. I so move. If you wish to second the motion, turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now, please. Is anyone going to second the minute?
Happy to second, Councillor Helm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Agreed.
We've all agreed, right? Declarations of interest now, I believe. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosure of pecuniary interests other pecuniary interests and non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8, inclusive of the code of conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. If any member has an interest to declare, please use the chat or let Berna know and indicate now, and I will invite you to speak.
Yes, Chairman, Councillor Fluker and Councillor Channer would like to declare.
I'll take Councillor Channer first, ladies first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I must declare non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council because they're consulted on matters to do with highways, access, education, anything else under the planning remit. And I did note in one report they were actually specifically referred to regarding some issue to do with waste, Chairman. I think that might have been agenda item number 8. And I'll also declare regarding agenda item number 7 and agenda item number 8, non-pecuniary, I am aware, or rather know the agent.
Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item 7, I know the agent. Agenda item 8, I know the agent and the applicant, and I declare in the interests of openness and transparency. Thank you.
Okay, any more?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to object to that. I'd like to know if that's a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest, and not just openness and transparency, please. Councillor Fluker.
Okay, Councillor Bassinger, non-pecuniary. But
Thank you very much.
25 of the Localism Act does allow you, to declare in the interest of openness and transparency.
Not according to the...
Oh, come on, stop this argument.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5. 20-00411 FUL, land south of Red Lions Lodge, Burnham Road, Latchington. Found on pages 17 to 32. Please note that there's a members update in relation to this application has also been circulated prior to the meeting. In a moment, I will call on officers to present the item, members, and remind you that if you wish to speak on this item, please let Berna know and I'll invite you in. Please keep your points clear and concise. Ms. King, would you like to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a new dwelling and carts lodge garage with a studio above. This application is a resubmission of a previously approved application for the same style of dwelling. This is the location plan showing the proposed site. This is the proposed block plan showing the location of the proposed dwelling and cart lodge garage and studio. The outbuilding and stable block indicated are the outbuildings referred to in condition 6 in the report. The block plan in the corner shows the proposed location of the previously approved dwelling, and as you can see, it's in the same position as the current application. This is the ground floor plan and the proposed first floor plan. This is the proposed garage studio ground floor plan and the studio first floor plan above the garage. This is the proposed northwest elevations and the proposed southeastern elevations. These are the proposed garage elevations with the studio above. This is a previously approved application, the block plan showing position of the dwelling and the previously approved elevations. And these are photographs of the site showing the entrance and views to the north, east and southwest. The application is recommended for approval and an additional condition regarding soft landscaping is also proposed. Amendments to condition 6 of the report would specify the buildings that are to be retained. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms Keane. The recommendation is set out within the report is as follows. The planning application 20-00411 FUL, land south of Red Lions Lodge, Burnham Road, Latchington be approved, subject to conditions as detailed in section 8 of the report. If any member wishes to second that motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now, please.
I'll second that, Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Councillor Boyce. I'll now invite members to make any comments. I think we should start with the ward members. There's Councillor Boyce and Councillor Bassinger. Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the officer recommendation that it is a site that has been previously agreed, and I see no sound planning reasons to go against that or this recommendation, and I propose the recommendation. Oh, well, sorry, I seconded it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No comments, only I agree totally with Councillor Boyce, and I also approve this recommendation.
Okay, lovely.
Chairman.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Channer would like to speak.
Councillor Channer.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, actually, I do have some concerns about this application now. We're being told there was a previous approval in 16. Well, I believe that was under the old local development plan. As we know, our adopted plan now was done later than that. And it seems to be the report refers to that all the while and saying what was approved. It appears to me from the report there's been no technical start. Effectively, I now believe this does contravene our adopted local plan, and I do have real issues. I mean, the building itself is massive. We're talking here something about over 70 feet, 25.9 metres, which is over 70 feet, and massive depth, and also regarding the garage. So now we're looking, they haven't actually got a permission. To my knowledge, 3 years has gone. So that's disappeared from what I can see with no technical start. This has to be taken to me on its own merits as a new application under our local adopted plan that we have, which was later than the 16 application. So therefore, I don't see that we can apply the policies of that plan now to that. That was the old replacement local plan. So I have grave concerns about this, bearing in mind our 5-year housing land supply and bearing in mind what we are seeking as a district in terms of buildings coming forward, about 2 beds required. So, Chairman, I would like some responses also to not apply the RAMs to this. I've read the report. We're now seeing other people having the RAMs stuck on and having to have agreements regarding RAMs before they get a permission. It seems to be that the officer's saying on this one, and no, I'm not criticising the officer, but saying that no financial contribution should be given on this. Well, to me, for my reasons stated, to me, this is a wholly new application. We can't apply that's had a previous approvals or before that. We have to start again new under our local development plan, and I have grave misgivings now about this application, Chairman, for those reasons I've stated. Thank you.
Can I have a comment from a planning officer, please?
Thank you, Chairman. To a certain extent, Councillor Channer is correct. The application is contrary to the local development plan, but as members will know, that as decision makers, we need to assess every application in accordance with the development plan unless material indications indicate otherwise. Planning permission was granted, I think it was at appeal, if I'm honest, in 2016 for development of the site for a dwelling. And as the officer's report in section 5.1 under principle of development explains, although the 5.1.3, although the proposed development is a departure from the development plan, consideration should be had to the 3 previous approvals for replacement dwellings on the site. Due to these previous approvals, the principle of a new dwelling has been established and accepted. The applicant states that the existing dwelling has been demolished in line with condition 5, which would have been required, but there's condition precedent, so we actually don't consider planning permission has expired on this site. But we need to be able to assess harm, and the inspector when allowing the 2000 appeal in 2015, 16, I can't remember when it was off the cuff, accepted that this site was acceptable for redevelopment and the provision of a dwelling. And while I can understand Councillor Channer's points and it is a consideration, officers consider that the material consideration that is the previous decision is of substantial weight and should weigh heavily in favour of the proposal. In relation to RAMS, that's a more of a balanced consideration, I would think. RAMS relates to basically any decision the local authority makes. It's not only in relation to planning applications, but obviously one of the most obvious examples of where the council needs to look to mitigate harm from additional residential properties is obviously with planning applications, and through that we've got the SPD that we've been working on and financial contributions. What officers have considered is that by granting this application, there is no additional harm compared to what was granted a number of years ago by the inspector. Therefore, if they had done everything correctly, they would have been able to build this house as it is now without needing this application if all the T's have been crossed and all the I's have been dotted. Therefore, officers consider that the decision to grant planning permission today will not result in any additional harm compared to what legally could happen. If members disagree with this and think that actually they should be looking at seeking a RAMS contribution, that's within the decision maker's gift. It's not a definitive right or wrong in this instance. It's a planning judgment call. And if members think that there should be a RAMS contribution, then I would suggest that members look to amend the approval to be delegated to officers subject to the completion of a unilateral undertaking for the RAMS. I think I've covered the points there, probably in a little bit more labour than necessary. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Bernard, is there anybody else who wants to speak?
No, Chairman.
Right, we move to a recommendation, which is to approve, seconded by Councillor Boyce. Can you take the roll call, please?
Thank you. Members, I will call your names in alphabetical order. Can you indicate for, against, abstain? Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Beale.
For.
Councillor Bell.
For, with the RAMS condition.
Yes, of course. Councillor Boyce.
Through you, Chairman.
For.
That can't be. We're voting on the recommendation.
Yes.
What Councillor Bell's just said.
Amend, approve.
But that isn't for this recommendation. Yeah, that's different.
Okay, so we're just voting on the officer's recommendation of approval.
That's correct.
Now. Okay. Do you want me to start again, Chairman? Just very quickly.
Carry on where we left off.
Okay. Thank you,
Chairman. Can I ask? Can we have clarity, Chairman? Again, do you mind, Chairman? Because I totally agree with what Councillor Bell said.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we went with the recommendation to approve. Nothing was put in then, so we cannot do it now, unless we have a tag on afterwards.
And can we do that?
No, through you, Chairman. No, obviously they're voting on the officer's recommendation. If members aren't happy with that because they wanted the RAMS, they should be voting against the officer's recommendation, or amendment should have been put forward.
Yeah. Okay.
That changes my vote then.
Can we start again, please?
That's why I was suggesting, could we start again, please?
Yeah, start again from the beginning, please.
Okay, so this is...
Well, sorry, Chairman, can I please ask, why are we voting again? Should we not, should we go with this and have the vote, and then if it goes down, do it again? What's the proper process here? Because I will be voting against, obviously.
We're starting again because there was a bit of confusion, so it's easier to start again than carry on and then have arguments afterwards. So we'll do it now, if it's all right.
Right, and are we starting again then on the officer's recommendation or with RAMS on, but we haven't had the proposal for that?
Officer's recommendation, because we haven't had a proposal before we start the vote.
Thank you.
Bella.
Okay, so we're taking the vote on the officer's recommendation of approval only. Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Beale.
For.
Councillor Bell.
Against.
Councillor Boyce.
For.
Councillor Channer.
Against.
Councillor Fluker.
For.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Steens.
Against.
Councillor Stamp.
Against.
Thank you, Chairman. That's 5 in favour of the recommendation, 5 against the recommendation, and no abstentions.
And I'll take the casting vote and it will go through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we'll move on to item number 6, Millfield Caravan Site, Burnham-on-Crouch, application 20-00452/FUL, found on pages 33 to 42. Please note that the members' update in relation to this application has also been circulated prior to the meeting. In a moment, I will call on the officer to print this item. Members are reminded that if you wish to speak on this item, please make it known to Berna, and I will then come to you in turn. Please keep your points clear and succinct. Mr. Johnson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just trying to sort out the sharing.
Chairman, I had a business plan come up on my screen. Oh, hang on. I think I've got Millfields now.
Okay.
Oh, is it up now? Yeah, I had a.
Yeah, I had a business plan pop up before.
Because I can't actually see it on my screen.
I can see it on the screen now.
Right.
There's a plan of the site and there's several things on the left-hand side.
All right.
That's the plan of the site.
Looking good, Michael.
Sorry, just bear with me. I'm normally on the other side, so and I'm not as technical as my officers. Right, thank you, Chairman. This application proposes the removal of condition 6, the wintering bird period, on approved planning permission 18-00381, which was the erection of the building to be used as offices, shop, shower toilet facilities, spa, pool facilities, and gym, and formation of hard standing, etc., in association with an existing caravan site. So we can see, I'll just get my laser pointer. We can see the site highlighted here. Right, now here's a location plan, and here we see our site more specifically outlined here. And members are reminded, and as set out in the report, this site has a lawful use as a caravan site, and planning permission was granted for additional facilities as just set out. These are just a few simple slides we have here because the application just concerns the removal of a condition. What is not for consideration here is the proposal as previously approved. So here we have an aerial view of the site and its surroundings. I will probably at some point be just referring back to this aerial view in identifying where some of the photographs, which I'll go on to now, will show. So here we have a view looking southwest. And then just to go back to the photograph, that was a view looking in this direction here, so over here. Going back to this view looking west across the site. If I just go back to the area view, so that's looking towards this area here. So can I just go back to this site here? So the condition is to remove that condition. That condition was placed on the previous permission as a precautionary measure in terms of protecting wintering birds over the particular period. The applicant has sought this removal of this condition because it was considered that it's not necessary to provide this precautionary protection because the site is not considered appropriate for wintering birds over this period. And as members will note, the consultation response from our ecology consultee supports that position, and that is set out within the report under the consultation section. So what members have in front of us is the proposal to remove the condition. Officers recommend that it can be removed without prejudicing the proposal or the nature biodiversity interest in the area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is set out in the report. Planning application 20-00452 FUL Millfields Caravan Site, Burnham on Crouch, be approved subject to conditions and details in section 8 of this report. If any member wishes to second that motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone, state your name now. Anybody?
Councillor Bell, second.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Thank you. I'll now invite members through Burner to make any comments on the report.
Yeah. Chairman, Councillors Skeen and Bell would like to speak to this item. Could we also ask members to keep their microphones muted when not speaking, as I believe there's an echo on YouTube at the moment? Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Skeens, was it first?
Yeah. Yes. Well, of course, as you'll all be aware, that this particular site has been a source of lots of controversy. No point in going into that. You're all familiar with it. It's a pretty unpopular idea in Burnham, but it's been given planning approval. It's where we are. But can you? There's something I don't quite understand, and I'm sure the planning officers will be able to help. The RSPB have said that they haven't got a problem with this. My experience is that there are birds wintering, and indeed it's become a bit of a haven for wildlife. Can officers tell me if the RSPB visited, and if they did they visit during winter months?
Officers, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not aware that the RSPB had visited the site. In carrying out the assessment of this application, we saw the comments of our ecology consultant set out at 7.3 in the report, who had offered no objections. So in terms of that question, Councillor, that's the answer that I'm able to offer you. Thank you, Chairman.
Who else was there now, please? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, it's as Councillor Skeens said, views on this are well known, but we're not here to discuss that. Now, this particular area, there are no overwintering birds. In fact, the nesting bird season is from March to August. So I'm not entirely clear at what point in the year these works were supposed to be done, if they couldn't do it in the winter and they couldn't do it in the summer. I'm a little bit cross because it does feel like sometimes planners go, oh, it's Burnham, let's just stick an overwintering birds condition on it. And I would like to invite planning officers to Burnham to maybe get a little bit of a better understanding of the local ecology, of where the specific bird populations, migrating ones and ones that live here, I forget the right word, sorry, actually live. So this particular area, which I'm very familiar with, I visit it every day, we're looking at spring and summer nesting for birds, not overwintering, and that is why I have seconded the motion to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any officer want to comment further on Councillor Bell's points?
No, Chairman. We do welcome Councillor Bell's comments. And then I suppose, if anything, it would be just really to reiterate what was said already regarding the ecology consultant's comments, which is actually consistent with what Councillor Bell had mentioned. And I think that, again, the comments under 7.3 are quite clear. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. I think it's quite usual to put that condition on about winter birds where anything is near the water. We had one at Mayland, and it includes seals. But that was so far inland, it didn't make any difference. But that's what you do. Thank you. Right. Anyone else, Berna?
No, Chairman. Oh, sorry, Councillor Skeens would like to come back on that item, please.
Yes,
not wishing to contradict Councillor Bell, but I've seen both. I've seen chaffinches and robins, which are wintering birds, down there during the winter. So it does really suggest to me they are wintering. I've not seen their nests, I hasten to add, and I am concerned that the RSPB doesn't appear to have actually visited the site, and makes me wonder, when we get these ecology reports, whether in fact these consultees actually have the time or to actually come down and visit these sites. It is a concern for me.
Thank you for that, Councillor Skeens. We now move to the vote. We have a recommendation to approve, seconded by Councillor Bell. Bernie, could you take the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I will call your names in alphabetical order. Can you state clearly for, against, abstain for the officer's recommendation of approval? Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Beale.
For.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Boyce.
For.
Councillor Channa.
For.
Luca.
For.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Hull.
For.
Councillor Skeens.
Against.
Councillor Stamp.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. That's, sorry, 9 for, 1 against, no abstentions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. That's duly passed. We move on now to planning application 20-00459/FUL, Big Co House, Foxhall Road, Southminster, Essex. Found on pages 43 to 54. In a moment, I will call officers to present this item. Members are reminded that if you wish to speak on this item, please make this known using the chat function within the meeting. Then I will ask you to come, or Berna would ask you to come. Please keep your points clear and succulent. Thank you. Ms. Keane? Mrs. Keane?
Thank you, Chair. Planning permission is sought for the change of use of land from agricultural to B8 storage and distribution and the erection of a storage building. So this is the location plan. This is the site plan showing the scale of the site outlined in red. This is the block plan showing the location of the proposed building and the area of land that would be used for the B8 storage and distribution. These are the proposed elevations of the open fronted storage building. And this is the floor plan. And these are the photos of the site showing the entrance from Foxhall Road, the current use of the site and the open countryside beyond. The application is recommended for refusal as there is no policy consideration that would support the change of use of land in this locality and result in an unacceptable form of development in the countryside. It's also considered due to the noise the development would impact on the neighbouring amenity of the dwelling to the east. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Have we anyone wishing to? Oh, hang on, we've got to go to the thing first. Oh, sorry. The recommendation is set with the report as follows. The planning application 20-00459-FUL at Beco House, Foxhall Road, Southminster, being refused for the reasons detailed in section 8 of the report. If any members wish to second that motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now.
Second it, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Channa. Ward members are Councillor Beale and Councillor Fluker, I believe.
Yes, Councillor Fluker would like to speak. Chairman.
Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I've read this application. I know this site very, very well. It's in my ward. It's not a million miles away from where I live, and I've visited this site many times over the years because it's a commercial site and there's all sorts of businesses that are there. But Chairman, I wanted to, before I talked to 2 points on policy. I just really wanted some clarification because, as far as I can see, the application doesn't seek to introduce new use of a greenfield site in the country, and not least of all is that it's used as for commercial businesses now, and there's industrial buildings there. There's no end of stuff going on, and if you visit the site, you can see no end of buildings. I mean, there's a lot of photographs, but I think my first question is, Chairman, having read the report, can the officer confirm that they visited this site and they've actually seen what's going on there?
Officers, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, due to restrictions, we haven't visited recently, but there has been visits to this site, yes.
Thank you very much.
For clarity, Councillor Fluker, through Chairman, the applicant has submitted an application that is a change from agriculture to B1. Not B1, to
B8.
B8, sorry, yeah. So that the applicant acknowledges that there is a change of use of agriculture to B8 industrial use undergoing.
Okay, so thanks for that clarity, and thank you for confirming that no officer has visited the site in relation to this planning application, because I think if they had, they'd understand why I'm slightly confused about this. Chairman, I also note, Chairman, that the parish council supports this, and I'm sure that Councillor Beale might wish to comment on this as well, because it's been used for commercial purposes for donkey's years, decades, I think. Certainly for as long as I can remember, which probably goes back 50 years. So, Chairman, I just wanted to talk just briefly to policy S1. And this is all about effective use of land and delivering local services. Now, I hear what Mr. Lee says about a change of use from agricultural over to commercial. I find that quite strange because I always thought it was all commercial. It certainly doesn't look like farmland to me, and it's abutted on one side by, I think, what you'd call residential curtilage, and on the other side by an industrial site. There's 3 industrial sites down there. So, you know, is this policy S1, is it the effective use of land? Do we want to leave it as a small plot of agricultural land within what looks like a commercial area, or do we want to regularise this, which is what I think this planning application is to deal with? And the other policy, Chairman, is policy E1, and that talks to the regeneration, modernisation of expansion of existing employment sites. Now, it says specifically existing employment sites, and then it goes through a great big list starting at E1A to E10 of all of these other employment sites which are coming forward in the local plan. But it says quite clearly that we should regenerate, modernise and expand existing employment sites. That's policy E1, and if anyone's got a copy of the LDP, you'll find that on page 65. And then, Chairman, going back to this change of use from agricultural to commercial, I mean, policy E4, you know, if we were to accept that this was a very small parcel of agricultural land within this industrial site, then policy E4 says that, you know, we should, where possible, and there is a need, policy E4 says quite clearly that we can actually convert a piece of agricultural land into commercial use if it is applicable. So, Chairman, based on that and the fact that there's no objections to this at all. You know, I've read the report. Nobody's objected. The people that are in the closest residential properties haven't objected. The parish council supports this because they see this site as an important employment location for Southminster. They support it, Chairman. There is talk about the impact of noise, but I think that the applicant has submitted a noise impact assessment, which is now being found to be acceptable with regards to what their consultant is saying. But having said that, they said they'd mitigate it anyway. So, Chairman, contrary to the officer's recommendation, I would propose, Chairman, that we support this application and we allow it to proceed, because, Chairman, we should as a council be supporting local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beale. Councillor Beale, would you like to comment, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I totally agree with what Councillor Fluke is saying and the parish council. This piece of land is not tremendously large in respect of use of agricultural and would be better used in respect of the application use that's being applied. The land has never been of much special use, and in fact it helps out with the use of land for purposes which we are trying to expand in any case in the whole of the district, and that is better use of land for the use as suggested now. It's out in the wilds, as you might say, so it's not a lot of housing nearby, and what is nearby is very, very small. The land itself is better linked by roadway to the outside world, as you might say, and in fact, rather than have heavy lorries come through the village or anything else like that, it would mean that it'd be more localised for that type of use, and we'd be better served. In fact, as we've already agreed about E1, that's now agreed, but certainly I think it's a better use of the piece of land for the purpose which is being stated. So I would support this.
Thank you very much. I tend to agree with both the ward members. This site and the surrounding site has been used for industrial for many years. And now I'll invite other members.
Yes, Chairman, Councillor Channer wishes to speak.
Councillor Channer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm sorry, Chairman. I hate to do it because you are in the chair, but I disagree with you. And I'm afraid I do disagree with the ward members, although I have the greater knowledge than myself. However, I think the officer has got it right, because from what I can understand from the report, that there's no real case why the storage is required, which, of course, as we know, we've refused other applications on in the past when things have been required, stating to help with business. It's not because I'm against business. It's just that in the past we've done it with other people when they haven't come forward with the correct evidence as to say why they want something. And I believe that every bit of agricultural land, no matter how big or small it is, and the report is quite specific, that by allowing this particular development to occur, then it will cause harm to the public realm outside, and it will have an effect. So I understand what's going on in the site adjacent to, if you like, but that doesn't mean to say you necessarily have to extend that to allow this to occur. And I actually do think, from what my reading was, that environmental health did have concerns about noise, and that perhaps the what has come forward hasn't totally removed those all total concerns. So bearing that in mind, I think, regardless of I'm hearing from Councillor Beale, with all due respect, about a small number of houses nearby, if there is going to, in fact, be a loss to residential amenity or harm, then I think that's something we need to be absolutely sure of before such an application is approved. So hence why I seconded your proposal, Chairman, that you put forward that this be refused. And I seconded that proposal of yours, which you placed, because I do believe the officer's got it right, Chairman. So I'm agreeing with you, placing the proposal that this should be refused, and I seconded your proposal as placed, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for correcting me, Councillor Channer. But as Chairman, I have to move the officer's recommendation. I might not
correcting
agree
you,
with
Chairman.
It.
I was just letting.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll move on. Any other members wish to speak?
No, Chairman.
Right, we'll move to the vote. The recommendation is that this F20-00459-FUL be refused. Can I have a roll call, please?
Through Chairman, do you want any response to any of those points raised by members?
Yes, if you want to do so, please. Before we go to the vote.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. Just I think there's a couple of points. That's fine. I just wanted to make some clarity on. Councillor Fluker made the point that this is regularising development. This isn't regularising a breach, and the application form clearly states that the use of the site hasn't started. So it's not a retrospective application in that instance. Furthermore, the application isn't submitted as an expansion of a existing industrial estate or reliant or through the development of that. It's been read as its own, so it is just a new piece of industrial land, for want of a better phrase, that just happens to sit next to an existing industrial site. So it isn't an expansion in that sense. So any reference to the policies in that respect, I think, are artificial. It is just a new piece of employment land next to an existing employment land. So that is very different to an expansion per se. Also, Councillor Fluker references policy E4, which relates to agricultural and rural diversification, and it states the council will support the development of new buildings or activities associated with agriculture and other land-based rural businesses. Obviously, B8 uses are not agricultural or other land-based rural businesses. They are something that generally can be located outside of rural areas for clarity. And then the second part of the policy relates to use of existing rural buildings and change use and where we'll support that. Well, obviously, this is an application for change use of land. So policy 4, I don't think personally really has much relevance to determination of this application. And I just want to echo the points made by Councillor Channer in relation to noise. Environmental Health have raised an objection to this proposal, and I agree with Councillor Channer's point that really it doesn't matter if it's one person or 100 people. If there is demonstrable harm to one individual, then that should form a reason for refusal. And at the moment, the council or the local planning authority isn't confident that there would not be some form of harm to amenity of some residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Before I move back to the vote, does Councillor Fluker or Councillor Beale or Councillor Channer want to come back?
Councillor Stamp would like to speak, Chairman, and then Councillor Fluker would like to come back.
Councillor Stamp first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I wait for Councillor Fluker to do his bit, and then can I say my bit after him, please?
Yes, you may. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to pick up on this storage and distribution, because there are lots of farms that are working out on the Dengie where they have diversified their farming activities to encompass distribution and storage. I mean, Hall Farm at Southminster is an absolute classic case. So I understand what Matt Lee's saying, but there are plenty of precedents for this out there. But I'll give way to Councillor Stamp. Thanks.
Councillor Stamp, please.
No, mine was actually to thank Mr. Lee for actually clarity, and Councillor Fluker. I think this is a very difficult decision to make, and I just thank them both for, to be honest with you, clearing up a few queries I had. It's a difficult decision to make, Chairman, I'm afraid, on this one, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beale, do you want to come back?
No, I support what's been said by members.
Okay.
Right. Sorry, Councillor. Yeah, I just wanted to, just before members go to the vote, if the officer can just bring back up the aerial photograph identifying the allocations of the various land use, just so that members have in their mind the nature of the area. So there is that photograph that you have, Annie. Yeah, if you can just can you enlarge that? Is there any way you can enlarge that? Yeah,
no,
but if not, just if you can just so that members are aware, and then I think once you can see that, if you can identify the actual application site itself, yeah, and how that is distinct from the other areas also within the applicant's ownership, yeah, which obviously extends down. I can't see how far it extends, and I've got my bar across the bottom. But if you can also just flip to the location plan again, if you can you go to that again? Yeah. So it just so that we can be quite clear of the nature of the area around, and that the employment site does actually form a quite a discrete enclave of employment uses. Located, in relative proximity to the road, which is obviously appropriate there, and the extent of the countryside and agricultural land that is surrounding. And obviously, as we just need to be mindful in making our decision that there isn't this encroachment, because clearly the change of use was obviously proffered by the fact that there was encroachment into that area. Which it may be seen by other persons as to be part and parcel of the employment use, when it's not. It's actually encroachment, and we could even see the beginnings of further encroachment going south. So we just need to be mindful when we're making these decisions, the delineation of employment sites from the wider countryside. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else want to ask any questions before I move on to the vote?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Fluker would like to ask a question in relation to the slide, but it's off the screen.
Thank you. And unfortunately, the slide has disappeared. I just wonder if Mr. Johnson could pop the slide up again. Either one. Lovely. Thanks a lot, Mr. Johnson. I'm getting more and more confused now, because the area that's hatched in red. If you look towards the left-hand side of that, Chairman, towards the bottom, and there's some sort of orangey colour buildings there. All of those buildings are in situ, and all of them are being used for commercial activities. And some of them have been there for absolutely decades. So I really am surprised that the way this application's come forward, because as far as I was concerned, the site's always had planning permission to carry out commercial activities. I mean, could somebody identify, Mr. Johnson, perhaps, could you show us where this proposed unit is to be built?
If I can just defer to Miss Keane to identify the appropriate slide. Annie, if you could do that, please.
It would be good if you could.
Yeah, so it'd be in this area here. So if so this is the proposed building, which would be about here on this plan.
Okay, Chairman, I'm really grateful for that, because it appears to be within the cluster of buildings that are already there. You can see them on this location plan. So I still look towards policy one and see this as the regeneration, modernisation, expansion of an existing employment site. If it doesn't have planning permission, then I'm absolutely confused. But I still support the application, Chairman, because it's, it generates employment and it's a great thing. And I think what Councillor Beale said, having something like this in the middle of the village or whatever, and let's be honest, we've just discounted an employment site in the middle of Burnham for residential. So yeah, okay, Chairman, I'm as I said, I know this site well and I'm confused, but I still support it.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, we'll move to
sorry, apologies, Chairman. Councillor Channer would like to come back, please.
Councillor Channer, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Having had that put up by the officer again, I saw something there. I think I'm correct. Saying that no planning permission on something. Could we just see that on the screen again, Chairman? Because I think that's quite important, and it might be what Councillor Fluker is now, having a bit of surprise about. So there's no evidence of planning permission for those buildings that are indicated, those too large, and there's limited site history regarding another. So could that mean that hasn't got planning permission, or it does on that third building?
Can I have a reply?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, it was important for us to identify that this site seems to have just grown of its own accord and encroached into the countryside. Yeah, and obviously it's the purpose of the planning process to manage this particular growth. So we're concerned that just because there may be these dispersed buildings which may have been used to then suddenly become formalized through the planning process for further industrial uses in the countryside. The applicant is quite clear that the proposal is for a change of use, so they're in no doubt themselves that planning permission is required. I mean, on the other slide, the aerial photograph, even further than the red line site, you can see a few dispersed buildings. I mean, my question is, will they come in later on to say, well, there's these buildings here and they've been there for so long? And clearly there's no planning permission there. So we need to have regard to the planning history. We need to have regard to the lawful use of sites when we're making these determinations, and also have regard to our policy in trying to protect these sites. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, may I come back with a supplementary on something? Where the planning officer indicated the storage thing was to go, she seemed to imply to me it was going where some buildings already identified, and yet when I look at that application site thing we've just seen, which I've gone back to, saying where there's no planning permission, it seems to be on its own. I can't see the buildings it would be going in or replacing. So I'm a bit confused.
Can I have an answer from an officer, please?
It's free, Chair.
Sorry,
Michael.
Sorry, Annie. No, you.
Okay. As far as I'm aware, I think these are containers down here, so they're not building as such.
Okay.
So they'll be removing the containers that are there and replacing with a purpose-built building.
Okay, and the containers haven't got permission?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Are we all finished, Berna?
hold on.
Chairman, Councillor Stamp has a question.
Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, can I just ask, would that be an enforcement issue rather than a planning issue for this meeting, Chairman?
Well, someone's applied for planning permission. We have to decide yes or no.
Through you, Chairman.
You can go on to
Didn't mean that.
Through you, Chairman. To a certain extent, yes, Councillor Stamp. The application is before us as it is. The applicant accepts that that the use of the land is agriculture. So any use that is in conflict with that would be a breach of planning control, which obviously is isn't a matter for necessary for discussion on this, but it's a point of clarity that the applicant, as myself and Mr. Johnson explained, has quite openly accepted through the application that the lawful use of the site is agriculture and not for anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I think that's important. Thank you.
Can I speak, Councillor Hull?
Yes, of course you can.
Oh, can I? Sorry, I can't been able to get through. How long have the buildings been there? Do you know? And I can't see if the parish council are in favour and it is an employment issue. What is the reasons? Because we should be with parish council as well, shouldn't we? Because they live locally.
Through you, Chairman. The buildings that have been discussed on Ms. Keane and Mr. Johnson have already spoke about are not on this application site or subject to this application. We're just highlighting that we are unable to find any planning issues. So it appears that the use of the site for employment has grown, organically without planning permission, and probably was at one stage been breach of planning control, quite possibly now lawful through the passage of time. But that's a separate matter. In relation to, for want of a better phrase, going with the parish because they know best, that's not how the planning system works. We are here as decision makers to determine a plan application in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. That means we have to, starting point is our policies and whether or not a proposal conflicts with policies. We consult parish councils just like we consult public and other interested parties to get their input, and that is a material consideration in the determination of the application. But agreeing with a parish council or anybody else just on principle is not the way that the planning system works. It has to be looked at against our policies. And as explained, this at the moment is agriculture. The applicant has put this forward as its own site. It's not an expansion of an existing employment site. There's no evidence to say why it should be here. Because remembering that our policies in relation to employment need to evidence that if we're going to go outside the settlement boundaries, outside the allocated sites, we need to be evidence why there's a need for that. And there isn't anything as part of this application that backs that up. It appears to me, for want of a better phrase, but it's adjacent to a parcel of land that the applicant owns, and therefore for his ease, that's there. But the planning system is quite clear that isn't how it works, just like with the sequential test with new dwellings and things like that. So we need to look at the planning policies and go through that as the starting point. Thank you, Chairman.
It is the parish council that know the area well, isn't it? And also nobody's been against it. Nobody's written against it, have they? No local people. Through
you, Chairman. I'm very concerned about the assumption that just because the parish think it's okay, all office members and the council should think it's okay. We are here as a decision maker. We are here to assess an application against policies. That's the starting point. Just because the parish supports something, it should not be, or objects to it. Conversely, it shouldn't. It's a consideration, but it is not the fundamental part of determining a plan application. And case law is clear in relation to determined application. The level of objection or support for an application is not a material consideration. And actually, the point in relation to this is actually, and what the judge says when he actually does the assessment on this point, is that us as decision makers are to make the correct decision based on policies, based on evidence. The public quite often will not object on the assumption that the decision maker will make the right call, and either they don't want to have arguments with the neighbour, they might not want to, they might not know enough, etc. So just because someone doesn't object doesn't mean there won't be harm. And as I've sort of explained, our environmental health department, who have looked at the situation, have concerns about the impact on amenity of neighbours. So if we grant planning permission and there is an impact on those amenity, they may want to object then, but it'll be too late. We're here to make the correct decision at this time. We can't retrospectively go back and correct an error we make. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Can I ask a question of you, Mr. Lee, please? Assuming we go through with the officer's recommendation, where are all these businesses meant to go to? Have we got an allocated site where they can go to?
Through you, Chairman, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. This application relates solely to the parcel of land. It doesn't relate to the businesses that are occurring on the site.
There are people there, and if this is refused, they will have to shut up shop. Where are they going to go?
Well, this said so. The applicant has indicated that this isn't a retrospective application, and the buildings, etc., that Ms. Keane and Mr. Johnson looked at and explained, that's not subject to this application. So, granting planning permission or not granting planning permission doesn't impact on those existing sites.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. I'll move now to the recommendation.
I think Councillor Fluker has another question.
Right, Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman, for letting me come back. So, I'm getting more and more confused. At the end of the day, if Mr. Lee's saying this has got to revert back to agricultural land, it's bearing in mind to the south, it's bordered by Ashford Brook and there's no access there. One side is commercial land, we've established that, and the other side is residential. And Chairman, I'll hazard a guess, but I would say 90% of this site is covered in concrete. So, reverting it back to agricultural, in my mind, isn't an option. I think Mr. Lee said something quite interesting when he said they might be able to prove through enforcement action that whatever's been going on there has been going on for a long, long time, and that we may not be able to enforce because of the history on the site. But, Chairman, I still think we should be pragmatic about this, and we should support this application.
Mr. Lee, would you like to come back?
Through you, Chairman. When I was talking about enforcement action, I was talking about the query in relation to the buildings to the east off the cuff. So the applicant is I think if the applicant thought that this was immune from enforcement action, they would not necessarily be submitting a lawful development certificate. They would have submitted that rather than a new application where they acknowledge it's the lawful use is agriculture.
And Chairman, if you let me just come back and ask myself.
I'm being very lenient, Councillor Fluker.
I think you are. But Chairman, if members were mindful to approve this, could it be on the condition of a satisfactory noise condition?
If members were to approve this, I would recommend that there was some sort of condition in relation to noise. The issue is that guidance is that we shouldn't be putting on conditions such as that if we aren't confident that they can be overcome. And there is, to use your phrase, Councillor Fluke, we should take a pragmatic approach to the protection of amenity of neighbours and matters such where we may have concerns about the ability for it to be overcome. We shouldn't be imposing conditions that are going to floor the permission. So therefore, the applicant should be providing us enough information that we are comfortable with a condition could overcome the harm, and they haven't done that in this instance. So irrespective of the principal issue and whether or not you think the site on aesthetics could be allowed to be, or if you think that the use of land for employment isn't going to cause harm to the countryside, there's no aesthetic harm, if the principle of the development is acceptable, members should still potentially look to refuse the application just on noise, because that would be the correct planning approach to the matter. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, I think I've got Councillor Hull. Have a burner?
No, Councillor Hull still has her hand up, but Councillor Channer, I just wanted to check if she had a question, and Councillor Channer has a question.
Councillor Channer, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. But
No
it's really
problem at all.
It's really in light of what Councillor Fluker raised, and I think Mr. Lee's answered it, but Councillor Fluker did then mention about saying a load of concrete being on the site and reverting back to agriculture. My understanding is, in listening to Mr. Lee quite clearly, I felt Mr. Lee was saying the application says it, that it is about change of use of agriculture. So therefore, Councillor Fluke has said reverting back, but to my knowledge, from what's been said and the applicant's view, it's already seen as agriculture, so there's no reverting back. This is a change of use from agriculture to bunging this storage container on. Am I right on that? Because regardless of the fact if there's concrete all over it or whatever, it's recognised by all, it appears to be, that it's agricultural.
Through you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm just going to say yes. There's not much more to say to that, Councillor Channer.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your debate. I'll now move on to the recommendation to refuse. Berna, can you take the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So we're voting on the officer's recommendation of
That's
refusal.
correct. If that fails, we go back to the Councillor Fluker's recommendation.
I'll call your names in alphabetical order if you can state clearly for, against, abstain. Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
For the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Beale.
Against officer's recommendation.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Boyce.
Against.
Councillor Channer.
Mr. Lee has been so clear in his advice. I'm for the officer recommendation of refusal.
Councillor Fluker.
Against.
Councillor Helm.
I'm at two minds. I'm worried about the loss of employment and where the people are going to go, so I'm going to go against the officer's recommendation, which is very, very unusual, I'm afraid.
Councillor Hull.
Against.
Councillor Skeens.
For.
Councillor Stamp.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. That's 5 for the officer's recommendation, 5 against the officer's recommendation, and no abstentions.
I suppose I've got to use a casting vote, haven't I?
Yes, Chairman.
I will go against the officer's recommendation, please. So we have to take another vote on
that's right,
approving this recommendation, and we want conditions.
Reasons,
please. Councillor Fluker, can you give us some reasons, please? Councillor Fluker.
Sorry, Chairman. Chairman, I don't believe that this will, given its location, I don't believe it will cause demonstrable harm to the character and appearance of the site and the intrinsic character of the countryside because of where it sits. Chairman, it sits in what something is everybody's always accepted as being an industrial area. So, Chairman, I don't see it as contrary to policies S1, S8, D1 and E1 of the design guide. And Chairman, as far as the noise is concerned, I hear exactly what Mr. Lee says about, it's not a good idea to attach a condition that has to be satisfied by the applicant. But I think in this particular instance, Chairman, I think we should actually attach that condition, and then we can leave it up to the environmental health people and their agent, who my understanding is from an email from the agent, which I think has been sent to all members, that had actually been satisfied. So I think that's something we need to do to clarify, Chairman, through a condition. And Chairman, I've made a proposal, and I think Councillor Beale has seconded that.
Councillor Lee, would you like? Sorry, Mr. Lee.
You don't want to be one of those.
Been promoted that much, is it?
Thank you, Chairman. What I would like to point out for clarity, and I know it's probably too late now, but I hadn't had this raised. The application currently doesn't, according to the applicant, have any employment workers on site. There is nobody. That's what the applicant has stated in the application. They've not filled in the thing about that because according to them there aren't any. So that's a point of clarity, obviously. That
okay. Do you need any more conditions or anything, please?
The only issue I would raise is with the fairly broad statement Councillor Fluker has said about this. It would almost imply that this could grow exponentially. So I think just conscious of that. That would be the only guidance I would say in relation to Councillor Fluker's reason for approval. The matters of such as is their impact on harm are subjective in character of the area to a certain extent. As officers have said, they consider that the policy is contrary to policy, but I think members can stand and plan in principle where Councillor Fluker's direction of travel with his reason for approval is coming from. But as I said, it just is a little bit broad for my liking. In relation to the condition, I have concerns. I don't think members should be taking face value emails from applicants, and that's not a comment on this applicant. This is a comment in all planning applications. Things should come through officers, and obviously our Environment Health are still objecting, so I wouldn't agree with what the applicant has stated this. But as always, my advice would be, irrespective of this application, members shouldn't necessarily be quoting, taking verbatim correspondence directly had with them, because this hasn't gone through the due process and hasn't been validated by officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, can I ask
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Beale, you're the second.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We haven't looked at hours of operation.
Exactly.
Is that important at the moment to say what times they could use the site in for the purpose suggested?
I believe that is, Councillor. Mr. Lee.
Through Chairman, to be honest, if members were to grant planning permission for this application, I would be suggesting that conditions are delegated to officers, because obviously schemes such as this are quite challenging and complex and have the potential to have real and demonstrable impact on amenity of neighbours. Open storage, remembering that this is a carte blanche open application, which, you know, something such as storage of I don't know, scaffolding poles at 6 in the morning, moving of them would be able to travel a long way and cause a lot of harm. So officers would want to, with negotiation discussions with our environmental health team, come up with hours of operation, and we wouldn't obviously want to have it 24/7. But I would suggest on an application such as this, if members grant approval, is that it's delegated to officers and discussion with yourself as chair, Councillor Helm. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Normal hours are 8 till 6 and 8 till 1 on a Saturday, no working on Sundays and no working on bank holidays. Would that be sufficient?
Not, as you said, that's normally our hours, but I would always want to just double check off the cuff. You know, there are sometimes material considerations, but that would normally be the case. That's why at the moment I'd say it was delegated, but we would probably come back with something.
So this was now we're taking the vote for. Yes,
Chairman, Councillor Stamp would like to speak, please.
Councillor Stamp, by all means.
Yes, please, Chairman. Can I ask Mr. Lee, could this also involve a container or a lorry park, that you could have all sorts of huge things coming in and out? I'm just really concerned that this B8 could be absolutely anything, and we've now got no control over what could be coming in and causing a nuisance, whether it be a noise nuisance or a traffic movement sorry, Chairman, I've got the wrong teeth in. Nuisance at the moment, Chairman. I'm a little bit concerned about this. Can Mr. Lee help me?
I'll do my best, Councillor Stamp. The applicant has applied for a B8 use. In relation, they've stated storage of salt in inert waste. There's the potential to impose conditions that would tie that down if thought appropriately, but that wouldn't preclude the idea that there would be quite large vehicular movements, quite large issues. But that's one of the reasons why officers had grave concerns and suggested the second reason for refusal. There's a lack of clarity to ensure that there wouldn't be harm. Yeah. It's difficult because obviously that's why officers had that concerns. That's what the officers report explains, you know, the potential from harm from that. But obviously members didn't agree with officers, so it's hard for me to give much more advice than that because I've already provided my professional advice in that matter. But I don't know if Mr. Johnson wants to step in and if he wants
Michael Johnson, yes, please. Michael Johnson.
Yeah, just in terms of the question posed, I would just sort of draw members' attention to 5.1.10 of the report. That just gives a discussion about the noise report submitted. There was actually an inconsistency in terms of what was submitted and the nature of the application. It says there, it is noted the noise report submitted with the application states that the use of the site is retrospective, and a skip hire business currently operates from the site with up to 12 deliveries occurring per day. I mean, obviously that's inconsistent with the application form submitted by the applicant in terms that this is not a retrospective use. So there are obviously some issues there which we are concerned about, and hence leading to the recommendation that we made. But just in terms of that specific question, it's a skip hire business. We know what that involves. There's up to 12 deliveries a day. The way things are on the table following members' position is that there is no particular control over that. It says 12. It doesn't necessarily mean that there will be 12. And what is the nature of that? What is the size of those containers? It could be large containers. It's an open-sided structure. So there's a whole number of issues that could come out of this recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are we all finished?
Chairman, Councillor Channer would like to ask a question.
Channer, by all means.
Thank you, Councillor Helm. I'm sorry, I'm now getting more confused because it was said and I know it was a separate issue, Mr. Lee made it clear. We heard that if this didn't go through, then where are all the people going to go on the site? It could have ramifications for them. And yet Mr. Lee has pointed out now that apparently there is no employees on this particular site this is sought for. So that to me bodes that it is agricultural land. There wasn't employees on that, so it won't have any ramifications necessarily for the other businesses, and therefore that's why I still maintain the officer's original refusal was the correct one, especially in light of what we're hearing now and inconsistencies. I'm quite concerned, Chairman, actually, about this now.
Well, that can still go down, Madam Chairman. Councillor Channer, we've still got to go through the vote. People can vote against if they want to.
Yeah, for clarity, Chairman, on Councillor Channer's point, yeah, my response was in relation to the premises around and what the application stated, and I thought I had been clear, but obviously wasn't clear enough that according to the application, at the time, that this is not lawfully an employment site. There is no employment land according to the applicant occurring on this site according to the application forms, but obviously I wasn't clear enough at the time due to comments made during the voting process. But yeah, the applicant has clearly on the application forms not filled in the section about number of employees. On the application has clearly stated that the application is not retrospective. So those are the matters that officers have assessed it on, which is the application as submitted, and that is, as decision makers, the way we should be assessing it, not on how we feel or what our opinion is. It should be based on the application before us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Bernard, we'll move to the vote, please, which is to approve with the conditions stated by Councillor Fluker. Can you take the vote, please?
Through you, Chairman.
With the reasons.
Yeah.
Sorry, for the reasons stated by Councillor Fluker and the conditions delegated to officers in
That's correct.
The Chairman.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bernard.
Chairman. Members, I will take you in alphabetical order. Can you state clearly for, against, abstain? Councillor Bassinger.
I'm sorry, Bernard. I'm rather confused again. I thought we've just voted, and now we're voting again for.
We voted for. Sorry, Councillor Bassinger. We voted for the officer's recommendation of refusal, and that was refused. So now we're voting for Councillor Fluker's proposal to approve the application contrary to the officer's recommendation, which was seconded by Councillor Beale, and for the reasons outlined, with conditions delegated to officers in discussion with the Chairman.
So if we refuse, are we refusing the application again, or are we just looking at with conditions on it? I'm still confused, I'm afraid. Is it just me?
Councillor Bassinger, if you don't want this to go through, you say refuse or against. If you
Thank you.
Are minded to approve, you say approve or for.
Okay, thank you. Refuse.
Councillor Beale.
For.
Councillor Bell.
Against.
Councillor Boyce.
For.
Councillor Channer.
Against approval.
Councillor Fluker.
For.
Councillor Helm.
I'm afraid I have to go for. Sorry.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Skeens.
Against.
Councillor Stamp.
Against.
Thank you, Chairman. That's 5 for the recommendation, 5 against, no abstentions.
With a heavy hand, I have to do the casting vote for. I'm sorry.
Why do you? You don't have to at all.
Madam Chair, Councillor Stamp, you don't question the Chairman, sorry.
I can question the Chairman.
Of course you can question the chair.
I'm sorry, I'm the Chairman and I'm not being questioned on why and what for.
You said with a heavy hand.
You're sorry. Why are you sorry?
No.
Because I'm going against the officer's recommendation and using my own knowledge to vote. Thank you. Right, we move on to now 20-00549 OUT, land adjacent to 64 Southminster Road, Tillingham, found on pages 55 to 56. In a moment, I will call on officers to present this item. members are reminded, if you wish to speak on this item, please make this known through Burner within this meeting. I will then come you in turn, and please keep your points clear and succulent. Ms. Keenan, would you like to present the application, please? Is that the right one? Well, on the right page?
It's Ms. Staplehurst, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, this application is for outline permission for 1 3-bedroom bungalow. 2 applications have been refused previously on the site, which I will speak about later on. So this is the location plan. So you can see these are some residential sites to the east of the application site, and then some open fields to the west. This is the block plan showing the indicative positioning of the dwelling, which shows how it would sit behind the prevailing building line along Southminster Road, where properties are characterised by their frontages directly onto the road. So this application follows 2 previously refused applications. The 2016 application was for 2 two-storey dwellings and was refused due to its siting outside the settlement boundary and the impact on the character of the area, and also due to the access having unacceptable visibility. So you can see this is roughly what was proposed under that outline application. The previous 2019 application was for 1 two-storey dwelling. The concerns in relation to visibility were overcome, however it was still refused due to its siting outside the settlement boundary and the impact on the character of the area. These photos show the view of the entrance to the site here, and the house would be positioned roughly here. This is the view from where the house would be roughly sited south of the site, and this is the view to Whitehorse Farm across the road. The view east along Southminster Road, and here's the site entrance, and the view west, and the house would be positioned behind this fence, behind the sheds here. Due to the siting outside the settlement boundary and behind the main building line, the proposal would cause harm to the character of the countryside. The previous concerns have not been overcome, and therefore the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Planning application 20-00549 OUT, land adjacent 64 Southminster Road, Tillingham. The recommendation is to refuse. The reason section 8. If any member wishes to second the motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now, please.
Boyce, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Boyce. Members who would like to comment, please?
Nobody has indicated at the moment, Chairman.
Councillor Fluker has, I think.
No, he's indicated that he's no more questions. Oh, sorry, bear with me. He does. Apologies, Fluker. Yes, thank you. Councillor Fluker has a question.
Councillor Fluker, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Stamp, as well. Chairman, first of all, can I just clarify that I am a member of Tillingham Village Council, as they are known. Chairman, the Parish Council supports this application, principally because they think that it fits in well with the location and that there's no detrimental effect on the neighbouring countryside or the area. And Chairman, I'm sure you'll remember that we agreed a similar application at the Haven, which is about a half a mile to the west a couple of years ago. But Chairman, what I wanted to do before I speak to any policy, I just wanted to speak to a recent appeal, which members would have seen arrive in their inboxes this week, and it was in relation to Rosedale Cottages, Malden Road, in the north of the district, just before you get to Tiptree. And what the inspector said there was, and he granted a permission on appeal for 2 properties in the countryside, and I agree that it's a much different type of application as far as the fact I think that they were already built. But what he said was we should only grant where the intrinsic character of the countryside is not adversely impacted on. So, Chairman, this is all about, is this going to be impacted or not? The parish council, like me, we believe that where this bungalow is being located with proper screening to the west, you wouldn't even see it as you came down what we call the Dengie Strait. We wouldn't see that. And I think, Chairman, also I think it's worth mentioning that whilst the parish council supports it, there have been no letters of objection. So, and then I think the inspector then goes on to say, as long as it's compliant with other policies within the LDP. So, you know, is there a need for this type of dwelling? Well, it's the 3-bedroom bungalow, and I've heard earlier on, Chairman, that that we have a need for 2-bedroom properties, but of course it could be a 2-bedroom property with a study, and that would tick that box. We have evidence to know from what's gone on at Southfields in Tillingham and Blackwater Reach in Southminster that bungalows are an absolute premium, and I know Councillor Beale has always said how important it is to provide bungalows in the district. And the other thing, Chairman, that I wanted to just speak to briefly is sustainability, because I think the officer said it wasn't a sustainable location, and of course this fits in with satisfying the requirements of the LDP when we look at policy S8. So first of all, Chairman, you will know, because I'm sure you go down the Dengie Strait an awful lot, there's a wonderful footpath adjacent to the highway that goes all the way to Tillingham. And when you get to Tillingham, obviously there's a shop, there's a doctor's surgery, there's a school and 2 pubs and lots of other facilities, including a convenience store, which I think I mentioned anyway. But the officers alluded to the fact that the DART is a responsive service. Well, Chairman, I didn't think it was, because I'm always seeing the D4 buzzing around Tillingham and other villages. So I did a bit of research on this, Chairman, and if one goes on to the provider's website, and there's another company that provides this information as well, that there's actually 5 return journeys a day between Bradwell and Burnham. So I thought it's a bit odd that the officer said there wasn't, because when I checked this site, which I think is called Transport Move It or something, it clearly shows it. And funny enough, I saw one of the buses this morning when I was in Tillingham. So, Chairman, does this really affect the intrinsic value of the countryside and the beauty? But I think where it is, Chairman, it's tucked away. It provides a much needed bungalow for Tillingham. The parish council supports it, Chairman. And that said, Chairman, I can't support the officer's recommendation. I would propose that we actually agree with this recommendation. Thank you.
Matt Lee. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Chairman.
I saw your hand.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know if any other members wanted to speak before I came back on these points.
Yes, Councillor Boyce would like to speak.
I'm happy to, if I'll come back on some points after Councillor Boyce has spoken in case he has anything else.
Please. Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Chairman. I came looking at the agenda, predisposed to go along with the officer's recommendation on this, which is why I seconded your proposal to refuse. I can remember the history of this site going way back, and I've argued very forcibly in the past that there shouldn't be properties on this site. However, Councillor Fluker has actually put some doubts in my mind. I mean, I know Mr. Lee has said that the parish council are only a consultee, and we shouldn't really, we should go with policy, not what the local people wish. But Councillor Fluker has made some compelling arguments for me to reconsider. And at present, I am not so sure that I will be voting against this. I will need to perhaps see what the rest of the debate says on it. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Boyce, in the meantime, would you like to withdraw your seconding of the motion or not?
No, I'll wait to finish the
Okay, that's
debate.
fine. Just thought I'd give you the opportunity. Anybody else, please?
No, Chairman, not at the moment.
Well, if there's no further, I'll go with the recommendation.
Chairman, can I say something, please?
Matt Lee. Matt, oh, sorry, you were going to come back, weren't you? Sorry, Mr. Lee.
So I think Councillor Stamp just said she wanted.
I did.
Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, I think we've got to be in danger of, I mean, how many times have we sat on this committee where it says, you know, we pay for planning officers, but because we have eloquent councillors who've maybe been around for many, many years and know the way around the systems far better than other councillors who maybe aren't so established, I think we have to be really careful that we're going to go against another recommendation of the officers. It is outside the development boundary. And I'm sorry, Chairman, all this picking and choosing because we know or we don't know or whatever, we choose whoever we want to support at the time, is very dangerous, and we're setting a dangerous precedent here. And I actually feel very strongly that, and I've had this said to me by Councillor Fluke himself, what's the point in having officers that we pay them for if you're going to try and stop having, I tried to get something pulled at a different committee, and was sharply shot down by Councillor Fluker. So I do think we need to be careful here. I haven't got any reasons to support the Councillor Fluker's wanting to support it, and I really think we need to support our officers and recommend the refusal. It's there for a reason, and Councillor Boyce has, and I've heard him in the past when I've attended meetings, not as a councillor, really go and not want them in Tillingham, and they've fought long and hard in Tillingham to stop overdevelopment. And here we've got another one who they want to overturn. You can't keep picking and choosing, members. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Any Councillor, Mr. Lee, please.
I think Councillor Hull now wants to ask the question. So.
Yes, Councillor Hull and Councillor Fluker would like to come back on this as well, but Councillor Hull has her hand raised.
Yeah, we'll have Councillor Hull first. Councillor Hannah.
I just think it's we should take notice of our parish councils, because often these are the people that work,
You never
as
do.
you said, a long time. But they
Pardon, who said you never do?
Oh, but they and then it's like Tillingham. You know, we lost all the young councillors.
I can't hear what she's saying, Chairman.
No, I can't either at the moment.
Oh.
Get nearer the microphone.
Sorry.
You're very distorted, I'm afraid.
I haven't got a very good reception.
Turn off.
Yeah.
I can't hear her, Chairman.
Sorry, Chairman, if we could take maybe Councillor Fluker's comeback question and then see if Councillor Hull can sort out her reception.
In the meantime, members, don't interrupt when a member's speaking. You should have your microphone off. Thank you. Councillor Fluker, please.
Chairman, I'll give way to Mr. Lee. Thank you. And then come back.
Mr. Lee, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I just would like to reiterate that as decision makers, we cannot illegally delegate our decision to parishes and just be supporting their presumption. And although they may have more of a local knowledge, we are here to determine a planning application in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And that is point of case law, point of planning legislation. So I just want to reiterate that that is how the planning system's set up. Firstly, though, I'd like to secondly then move on to Councillor Fluker's point about the site being sustainable. I think it's a very dangerous statement. There is not good street lighting, there's not good access to day-to-day facilities. Remembering that, as the officer's report explains, that the site is relatively close to Tillingham, isn't it? But that is a smaller village. It's not one of our larger settlements anyway. And furthermore, which I will go on to slightly further. This has previously been refused twice for this information. And on the point about the dart bus, actually comes from Essex County Council information, but that's a slightly moot point, because actually I don't think a small number of buses per se will make this a sustainable site compared to others, and it would be a very dangerous position just to say this site is sustainable, because this would be something that every applicant would be able to echo and use against or in favour of their applications. In relation to the parish support, as once again, we are here to assess the application according to the LDP unless material considerations indicate otherwise. Members will know I've said it millions of times, to slightly exaggerate, but one of the biggest material considerations is planning history. Planning permission has been refused twice on this site, both on sustainability, impact on the character of the area, and to a certain extent the layout in relation to the street scene and urban grain. That should be a material consideration that members take into account and give substantial weight. The council has previously refused 2 applications on this site. The fact is, this application is a 3-bed bungalow. There's no way of conditioning that it could be 2 and that they'd be using as a study. And even if as members will know, because I've explained this before, even if the current applicant did want to use it as a study, there'd be no way of that being retained and insured long term. So the application should be assessed as a 3-bedroom property, and their strategic housing market assessment clearly indicates that we need 1 and 2 beds and not 3 beds. So I think those comments by Councillor Fluker should be given limited weight. Councillor Fluker also raises the recent approval or allowed appeal that came in, I think, on Friday, and I think it's fair point that all members know that we should take into account decisions by inspector, but I think it's very important to also note that this was an application that had been given planning permission previously. What had happened was similar to the first application, actually. So if anything, this approach that the inspector has taken sort of echoes what the conversation we had on the first application. This was a site that had been given planning permission. Development had been undertaken without the conditions precedent being complied with, so therefore the lawful planning permission fell away. The council didn't particularly have an objection to the proposal or the unauthorised development, but what we were actually more conscious was that conditions had fallen away. So things such as surface water and foul conditions, car parking, etc., no longer existed on that site, and there was no way to ensure that the harm was mitigated. So that's the main driver behind the council taking enforcement action. But to reference this one, as you know, Councillor Luke obviously clearly thinks that this is a very, very similar development. If Ms. Staplehurst can pull up the location or block plan for me, that'd be helpful. As members can see here, obviously there is a line of development along Southminster, and this site is clearly located to the rear, which obviously does not reflect the urban grain of the area. Importantly, with the one that Councillor Fluke references on Friday that came through, it says in paragraph 16 of the inspector's letter, this part of Malden Road is predominantly rural in character and sporadic housing and ribbon development, including where the appeal site is located. Remembering these are retrospective, so they actually are on site already. And a builder's yard lies immediately next to the appeal site. Beyond the yard, there is a farm shop selling various produce with a garden centre and coffee gift shop to the rear. A detached dwelling lies to the south of the appeal site, and there is a dwelling farm to this shop. So the point is that this was basically an infill plot on a ribbon development. This proposal clearly does not fall within those lines. This is a building behind the existing run of properties along Southminster. It's creating something outside the urban grain. And I think, looking at, as you can see from the plan in front of you, if we were to accept that a property behind this site is acceptable, and taking into account the fact that all of a sudden we're now going to say developments outside of the settlement boundary in a not particularly in a, I would think an area that is going to be very reliant on car park is now sustainable. I think members would need to be very conscious of this precedent and the potential then for applicants in relation to 64, 68, or sorry, 60, 56, etc., all coming in with similar proposals. And looking at this scheme, I could see no reason why officers would be able to say, if we're accepting a scheme here, why they wouldn't be acceptable. And, members ask me quite regularly in relation to areas such as Stony Hills, how do we stop these forms of development, and when is it when are we able to draw the line in the sand? The point is actually in planning is that you join the line in the sand before you allow the first one, because every applicant has a reasonable expectation to have their applications judged fairly and consistently. And taking into account, as you can see here on this plan, if members were to allow a dwelling behind this in this site outside of the urban grain and say it was sustainable, I'd be very difficult to look to be able to not support applications behind 64, 60, etc., provided there was an impact on their amenity space, etc. So I do have a lot of concerns about this scheme, and I also consider that the highlight in the previous appeal decision on Friday is very limited weight, and if anything goes against this application, not for it. And that, yeah, that matters such as saying this could be a 3B because they might use one as a study is a material consideration we can't give weight to. And I have real fundamentally grave concerns about trying to argue this site is sustainable, because it goes against what officers and members have decided on numerous applications around the district. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else, Bernard? Councillor Hull's got a hand. I don't think he wants to speak.
Councillor Fluker would like to come back on that, and then Councillor Stamp would like to ask a question, Chairman.
This is the last one, Councillor Fluker. And then
yeah, very much so, and I agree with you. I won't come back after this one. Look, you know, the reason why I refer to this appeal, because it spoke specifically to policy S8, and I've said enough around policy S8 and how you deal with that. But I would say that, as far as I can recall, the two refusals on this site were for two-storey properties, Chairman. They were houses which visually impacted, and the parish council objected to those. And I hear what Mr. Lee says about sustainability, but of course, when the officers made their decision and they were under delegated powers, I did wonder whether or not they have had the information available to them that local members and the parish council has. It's a 10-minute walk from this property to the middle of Tillingham, where all of the facilities are. That's actually quicker than going from Barley Meadows in Southminster up to Nissa. So, and I've already spoken to the facilities that are available. And as far as street lights are concerned, well, there's street lights now at South Fields, which is about 200 metres down the road, probably not even that. It's a very wide footpath, Chairman, and I say that it's a sustainable location. And when this committee approved a new residential property at the Haven, which is, I think, about a quarter of a mile or so to the west, going away from Tillingham, members said that that was a sustainable location. So I'll park it there, Chairman, and I won't be coming back, but I have made a proposal. Thank you.
You will not be coming back. Thank you.
Oh, I hope you're not bullying me.
Councillor Stamp, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I actually would like to support the officer. Mr. Lee made a very valid, well-rounded, and it's very true. And I think we need to listen to him. It is outside the development boundary, and you can bet your bottom dollar to a packet of a pinch of salt, or whatever the old saying is, those houses next door and next door but one will come following on. So I support the officer's recommendation to refuse. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Stamp. We move to the officer's recommendation, which is to refuse for the reasons detailed in section 8. We have a seconder for that. Can we go to the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Members, can you state clearly for, against or abstain? Councillor Bassinger?
Sorry, for the officer's recommendation, please.
Refusal, Councillor Bassinger, yes.
Thank you. Refuse.
Thank you. Councillor Beale?
Abstain.
Councillor Bell?
For.
Councillor Boyce?
For.
Councillor Channer?
For refusal, the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Fluker?
Against.
Councillor Helm?
For.
Councillor Hull?
Against.
Councillor Skeens?
For refusal.
Councillor Stamp?
For.
Thank you, Chairman. That's 7 for the officer's recommendation, 2 against and 1 abstention.
So that is refused. We move on now to our favourite location, One Stones Park, Stony Hill, Burnham on Crouch. Planning application 20-00552 FUL, found on pages 67 to 80. In a moment, I will call on the officer to present the item. Members, a reminder that if you wish to speak on this item, please make this known to Berna, and I will then come to you in turn. Please keep your points clear and concise, and please do not speak over somebody else during the meeting, which has happened twice or three times now. Ms Staplehurst, please present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a retrospective application for 2 dwellings. Firstly, please note the members' update, which has the Town Council response and a further public comment. An application in 2016 approved permission on appeal for 3 houses on the application site here and on this piece of land just to the north. These dwellings were of a slightly different design. An application in 2018 approved permission for the 3rd northern dwelling, so the dwelling that would have been on this piece of land, for an amended design which is of the same style to that proposed under this application. The 2 dwellings on this current site have been built without discharging any of the previous conditions from the 2016 application. This application has been submitted to regularise the 2016 application, the conditions and the design amendments made. The amendments relate to the design of the dwellings and the garages as set out in section 3.1.4 of the report. Also a verbal update, the internal amendments relate to minor ground floor layout changes and the reduction from 5 bedrooms to 4. The 5th bedroom is now a bathroom. So here is the location plan showing the site where the 2 dwellings are located, and this is where the 3rd dwelling that was approved in 2016 is located. Here is the proposed block plan showing the access coming from Stony Hills to the site with the 2 plots, the 2 garages here, driveway and parking to the front and the amenity space to the rear. And then you can see here again the 3rd dwelling approved in 2016, which has been built here. So this is the block plan from the 2016 application showing all 3 dwellings. So this was the dwelling that was approved again in 2018 for design amendments similar to that proposed under this application. These are the elevations for plot 1, where you can see the design amendments. So they consist of the front projections, these 2 on either side, and they've been altered from a hipped roof to a gable roof with an increase in eaves and overall height by 0.5 metres. The front centre projection has been increased in eaves and overall height by 0.6 metres. The rear projection has been altered from a hipped to gable end with more glazing up here, and the removal of some Juliet balconies to the rear. So you can see the amendments from the previously approved application in 2016. These are the current floor plans of the dwelling on plot 1. And these were the floor plans approved in 2016. So it's just this 5th bedroom here that's been changed to a bathroom. So here are the elevations of the dwelling on plot 2. So the amendments relate to the rear projection has been extended by 1 metre at first floor level and altered from a hipped roof to a gable end with glazing in the apex. There's been a removal of a rear Juliet balcony and minor fenestration alterations in relation to the windows, which you can see in the previously approved plans for plot 2. The proposed floor plans and the previously approved floor plans, again with the bedroom that's now a bathroom. These are the proposed garage plans and the previously approved garage plans. So the hipped roof has been altered to a gable roof. Here you can see the view north along the access leading to the houses here. View from the access south towards Stony Hills. And these are the dwellings, plot 1, plot 2. View of one of the garages, and then the neighbour to the north, which already has approval. It's noted that the original application was approved prior to the adoption of the LDP. However, it's not considered that the main thrust of the policies within the emerging and adoptive LDP have materially altered in a way that would mean the application should be viewed differently, particularly as the inspector for the 2016 application considered that the development did comply with policy D1 in terms of its impact on the character of the area. In relation to RAMS, as set out in paragraph 5.8.3, as the construction of dwellings at the site was approved in 2016 without the RAMS requirement, and the fact that the development is almost complete, it's not considered that the approval of this application would result in any increase in demonstrable harm as the development is in place, and therefore it's not considered reasonable to require a RAMS payment in this instance. Overall, given the history of the site and the surrounding area, there are no objections to the principle of the development. There would also be no harmful impact on neighbours, and the design, amenity space and parking are considered acceptable. And it's therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms Staplehurst. Under Council's public participation scheme, we have received one submission from the agent. In line with the public participation scheme, I've reviewed the submission and an officer will now read out allocating 2 minutes only to reading the submission in accordance with the scheme. The submission is from Neil Cooper, the agent. Michael Johnson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Dear members, the owner of the site instructed us to prepare revised drawings in February 2020 for the alterations that are before the committee. Our planning advice at the time was they were likely to be approved subject to a planning application for the following reasons. The proposals in their entirety and the small addition to number 2 Stones Park and the size and relation of them to the new scheme approved on plot 3 Stones Park, which is owned by another developer, were minor in comparison. All of the garages in Stony Hills are gable-ended as opposed to hip-ended, and plot 3 Stones Park has a triple garage with gable ends. So the change from a hip to gable on a much smaller garages should have been acceptable. The changes before the committee were all quite minor and had no additional impact on the neighbouring amenity, and were all planning policy compliant at local and national level. After instruction, unfortunately, we lost some staff due to COVID furlough, and one of our operatives had discussed with the owner that they were carrying out the alterations and submitted them. In July, the applicant called asking for copies of the relevant permissions, and we had to tell them that this had been overlooked due to the furloughed staff. We subsequently submitted new plans, albeit late, as the contractor had carried out the alterations, assuming they were approved. Whilst it is understood that the applicant should have waited, we can only apologise on their behalf for the misunderstanding. I hope members take these comments on board in determining this application, alongside the fact that planning officer recommends the small amendments for approval, and understand that as an agent, we are responsible for the mistake on behalf of the applicant, but hope they will see that these amendments to the original plans are minor and comply with planning policy, and that the scheme for 1 and 2 Stones Park are still minor compared to that already approved at number 3 Stones Park, and would respectfully ask that the amendments are approved in this case. Thanking you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'll move the recommendation, that is to approve subject to conditions as detailed in section 8 of this report. If any member wishes to second that motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now. Anybody?
Boyce, I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Boyce. Obviously, members want to speak on this. Which one do we take first? Bernard, which one have we got first?
Sorry, when you say which one you've got first, we've Councillor Stamp wanting to ask a question.
Stamp, please. Yes, that's fine.
Councillor Helm, I'll give way to Councillor Hull if you wish.
You can go ahead, and then Councillor Hull will come in afterwards.
Okay. Just for clarity, just a quick question to the officers, and maybe help some of the members. So has these two properties been built unlawfully without the council permission? And does that have any effect when it was actually approved in 2016? Chairman, did the planning permission run out? I understand the rest of the argument that the obviously the precedent's been set. I just want clarity, if that's okay with you, Chairman, please.
Officer, please.
Yeah, through you, Chairman, I can go back to that. So as discussed in the principal section, because the dwellings were built without having discharged any of their pre-commencement conditions, we don't consider that permission, the 2016 permission, is extant. So that they have been built without permission. That's why it's been brought forward at committee and been advertised as a departure. Thank you, Chairman.
Did you want to come back, Councillor Stamp?
Can I reserve to come back later, please, Chairman?
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Hull?
Through you, Chairman, I think there's a second point to Councillor Stamp's query that I don't think Mr. Stapehurst picked up on, and about whether or not that affects the assessment. Yes, it does. Obviously, not having an extant permission is much less of, or having previous permission but it no longer being live, so there's not been extant permission, obviously is less of a material consideration than if there is an extant permission, if there is a live permission on site, and that obviously affects the balance of it. But what also affects the balance is the assessment of when planning permission was granted, and as Ms. Staplehurst explained in the presentation, the inspector found no harm to this form of development, which is something, you know, we found numerous inspectors to find at Stony Hills, no matter whether officers have recommended approval or refusal, and they've gone to appeal when members haven't agreed with our recommendation for approval. And that's, I think, is the important point in this, is that when assessing the scheme, although it was before the adoption of LDP, potentially off the cuff, I'm not sure, before we had a 5-year land supply, the inspector, when looking at this scheme, found no harm, irrespective of those points, rather than giving weight to our lack of our 5-year land supply that overcame those harm. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hull?
Sorry, to be clear,
Sorry, Councillor, if you're going to have a query, I don't think officers are going to be able to respond to it.
We can't hear you at all, Councillor Hull. We'll have to move on to somebody else. Is there anybody else?
No, Chairman. Nobody else has indicated as yet.
Can we try Councillor Hull again?
Could you put it in the chat bar, Chairman?
Can you hear me at all?
Sorry, excuse me, she's on screen now, councillors.
Oh.
Hopefully she can. Thank you, Councillor Hull.
Can you hear me? What I'm concerned about, they haven't been built at all, have they? These houses? They have been built, but without permission. Can you hear me?
Councillor, Mr. Lee, would you like to answer Councillor Hull's?
Yes, through you, Chairman, for clarity, planning permission has previously been granted, but because of condition precedents weren't cleared and the development has taken place, that extant permission has fallen away. So legally, they have been built without planning permission because the planning permission was never complied with. I hope that, but it's not a case of they've just randomly gone in a field and built 2 houses, if that's what your question is. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Hull, do you want to come back?
Yes, please. Does it mean if they don't get permission, they'll appeal to us again, and the council will have to might lose a lot of money on it?
Through you, Chairman, taking into account they're on site, I think if they're built on site, I think it's very likely the applicant would appeal. The second point of that question, I think it's a bit of a moot point. We should not be refusing schemes that should be granting appeal. So we shouldn't be. We should definitely not be refusing schemes if we think there's concern that we'll get costs at appeal, because the only reason we would get costs is if we've been unreasonable, which would mean we haven't determined the application according to the development plan as material considerations indicate otherwise. And I would hope as a committee and as an authority we'd always do that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else, Bernard?
Not at the moment, Chairman, unless Councillor Hall wanted to come back again. I thought I heard her say something.
No, I just said thank you. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you, Councillor Hall. No, nobody at the moment, Chairman. That's the lot.
Right, we move on to the recommendation seconded by Councillor Boyce, I believe.
Chairman, I did ask if I could come back, didn't I?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, I did, and you said it was okay, Chairman.
Yes, sorry, that's my mistake. I apologise.
What I would like to say, and I think this is Councillor Fluker's, whether he's in or out at the moment, he's having issues logging in and out. We are where we are. I actually do like the amendments that the developer has done, and we can't go back on it. The precedent has been set. We all understand that. My only issue is that they haven't followed process and procedure, but that's down to the council to sort out. But I actually will be supporting this, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Right, I'll remove to recommendation that planning application 20005552 FUL 1 Stones Park, Stony Hills, Burnham be approved, subject to conditions and detailed in section 8 of the report. Can you take the vote, please, Bernard?
Yes, Chairman. Can I just say before I call the vote that Councillor Fluke has indicated he had connectivity issues, so he won't be taking part in the vote. I am correct, am I, Councillor Fluke?
That's absolutely correct. So can you just record that accordingly under the virtual meeting protocol, because I can't. It's not just a case of abstaining. I can't vote. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Fluke. Very honest of you. Thank you.
Okay. So for the officer's recommendation of approval, can you please state clearly for, against, abstain? Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Beale.
For.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Boyce.
For.
Councillor Channer.
For.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Speens.
Against.
Councillor Stamp.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. That's 8 for, 1 against, no abstentions.
That's carried then. We move now to item 10, planning application 20000577 FUL for land adjacent 20 Chapel Lane, Tillingham, found on pages 81 to 96. Please note the members' update in relation to the application has also been circulated prior to the meeting. In a moment, I will call on officers to present this item. Members are reminded that if you wish to speak on the item, please make it known to Berna and I will then come to you in turn. Please keep your points clear and succulent and do not speak over somebody else. Thank you. Have we got the right one here? 20 Chapel 10. Sorry, I've got several papers in front of me and it's a job to keep up with it. We've accompanied the officer now to present the application, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, I was a bit confused there because the page turned over.
This application is for 2 semi-detached dwellings and is a resubmission from a previously refused application. The previous application was refused due to the design, the shortfall in parking and in relation to RAMs. The dwellings have been reduced in height and are now of a chalet style. The number of bedrooms has been reduced, so there is no parking shortfall and a legal agreement has been submitted in relation to RAMs. Please note the members' update, which confirms the agent has submitted a legal agreement in relation to RAMs and has further consultation responses and public comments. Firstly, I'd just like to point out on this plan, this A brown line shows where the conservation area is positioned. So the site here is outside of the conservation area, and the specialist in conservation has no objections to the proposal, which can be found on the members' update. So this is the location plan showing the site outlined in red on the northern side of Chapel Lane, which is accessed via South Street. This is the block plan showing the positioning of the two dwellings, with 2 parking spaces to the front of the site and the amenity space to the rear. This tree to the rear is shown to be removed. However, a condition has been included to ensure its retention, and that building works don't damage this tree or this neighbouring tree either. A condition has also been included to ensure a walkover ecological survey is undertaken prior to commencement to ensure there are no harmful impacts on ecology. So these are the elevation plans. So the houses have been reduced in height and are now of a chalet style rather than 2-storey. So these are the plans from the previous refused application, and you can see the reduction here. The proposed floor plans showing the reduction from 4 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, meaning that the 2 parking spaces provided would be sufficient, and the previously refused floor plans with the 4 bedrooms. And then the proposed street scene plan and the plan from the previous application to show the amendments made and that the dwellings would be in keeping with the scale of the other dwellings within the street scene. Photographs west along Chapel Lane towards the application site here, and again the view of the application site. And some photos of the neighbour to the east, number 20, a view of the site and the neighbour to the west. Overall, the proposal is not considered to result in material harm to the character and appearance of the area or neighbouring occupiers. There are also no concerns in relation to amenity space or parking, and therefore the proposal is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms Stablehurst. Under the Council's public participation scheme, we have received 2 submissions, one from rejector and one from the agent. In line with public participation scheme, I have reviewed the submissions, and an officer will now read this out, allocating 2 minutes only for reading each submission in accordance with the scheme. Michael Johnson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We are Janet and David Beard of 20 Chapel Lane, the neighbouring property, and are objecting to the proposal for the following reasons. 1. A building of the proposed size, scale and design is not only far too big for the plot, but will not be in harmony with the conservational aesthetics of the north side of Chapel Lane, and thus will not enhance or contribute to the street scene in any way. 2. A building of the proposed proportions and close proximity, being just 1 meter from our border, will have a substantial impact on our quality of life. It will overshadow the side of our bungalow that faces it. On this elevation, we have 4 windows and a glazed door through which we get the majority of our natural light and sunshine, which provides a great deal of internal warmth. We also enjoy relaxing on the patio area along that side, and the proposed overlooking bathroom window, although obscured glass, will be regularly opened. 3. With the proposed dwellings, there is potential for 8 private vehicles. This would be unacceptable in a small private lane where parking is already at a premium. And as it is also a public footpath, the safety of pedestrians and animals would be put at risk. Point 4. This area enjoys a huge amount of wildlife, and it is proposed to remove a beautiful mature walnut tree. There are further trees and a large wildlife pond to the rear of the property. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Submission 2.
Thank you, Chair. This is Mike Otter, the agent. Good afternoon, members. The points raised in objection by Tillingham Parish Council and representations from neighbours have been comprehensively addressed by the Malden District Council Planning Case Officer in the committee report. It remains, therefore, for us to confirm that a great deal of thought has gone into the design and style of the proposed development to complement the mix of surrounding properties, with particular consideration to the ridge height of the main structure and a single-storey feature to the rear of the properties. Also, the side elevation fenestration. Our clients actually have a beneficial interest in number 24, the westernmost adjacent chalet dwelling, which, naturally, has given them a greater personal incentive to present an attractive development whilst retaining untouched the pond and its natural surroundings, which is also in our ownership. They are more than happy to retain the walnut tree, which was originally thought to be a potential problem, but this is now no longer an issue. We would refer the members to the plan attached to the committee report, which clearly shows that the distances between the two adjacent properties are considerably greater than all of the other dwellings for quite some distance down the lane, on both the north and south sides, most of which have gaps of between just 1 metre and virtually 0. The distances, dwelling to dwelling, east and west of the proposed development are 5.8 metres and 10.3 metres respectively. We would like to record our appreciation of the planning officer's support for this application and would welcome similar favourable consideration from the committee members. Many thanks for listening. Mike Otter for GPO Designs. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. The recommendation as set out with the report is as follows. The planning application 20.00577 FUL, land adjacent 20 Chapel Lane, Tillingham, be approved subject to signed a unilateral undertaking to confirm that development will contribute to the Essex coastal RAMs and conditions as detailed in section 9 of this report. If any member wishes to second that motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now. Anybody? Have we got anyone, Berna?
Well, we've got Councillor Fluker would like to speak on this item, but we're waiting for a seconder, unless you want to carry on now. We don't necessarily have to have one.
Chairman, I'll second it. Chairman, Councillor Stamp will second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stamp. It's very good of you.
So Councillor Fluker is ready.
Councillor Fluker, please. Councillor Fluker, please. Are you still there?
Yeah, I am indeed. Yes, Chairman, I'll just say this. First of all, I think Mr. Otter, the applicant or the agent on behalf of the applicant, I think he said that he worked really hard with the council and the parish council to get something that was acceptable. But Chairman, I can confirm as a member of Tillingham Village Council, the application that we considered is actually the same one that's before this committee, and you will see from the report, and we've already been told that basically how much weight we should give to the responses from parish and village councils from Mr. Lee, so we don't have to go through that well-rehearsed argument, but they do not support this, Chairman. The reason why is that Chapel Lane is an interesting road. It's got some quite interesting properties in there. The conservation area does extend to the other side of the road, so it's diagonally opposite, but I do hear what Mr. Howson says as far as the fact that he has no objections to this. But Chairman, I think if Councillor Jewett could attend these meetings during the day, and I'm sure he'll be delighted to attend the next one, which I understand will be starting at 6 o'clock when he's not working. But I think this would have been his argument that this is like fitting the quart into the pint pot. And Chairman, I don't think this has improved much. There are different properties in Chapel Lane. It's an unadopted road. It's got some nice features, some nice properties there. And either side of this properties are detached houses, Chairman. And going back to I think what Mr. Lee said, we've got to be very careful not to set precedents, because I note that the one next door has got a garage and something else, and we can see if we suddenly allow pairs of semi-detached houses, we're going to have problems. So, Chairman, I would propose, Chairman, that based on what's been submitted submitted by Mr. Otter on behalf of his clients, that this application is refused under policy D1. And Chairman, I just expand that because, you know, there's an awful lot of policies, sub-policies in D1. So, Chairman, my view is it does not enhance the character of the local context and make a positive contribution in terms of architectural style. The height, size, scale, form, massing and proportion, I still think, Chairman, in relation to the street scene, it's too much. The layout, the orientation and density is covered under policy D1D. And finally, Chairman, I don't actually think this will contribute and enhance the local distinctiveness. So I would propose, Chairman, that this application, as it stands at the moment, as a pair of semi-detached houses, that it's refused under policy D1, 1A, 1B, 1D and 1.8. And I understand what Mr. Lee says, but, you know, we really should listen to our parish councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker. Anybody else, please, Berna?
Yes, Councillor Channer and then Councillor Skeens.
Councillor Channer, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Would it be possible, please, to see, I've listened to what the objector had to say and concerns about the effect on their amenity. Could we see perhaps the block plan again and be pointed out where the objector is and where the proposal lies and distance between them, if that's possible, Chairman?
Number 20 is this site here. So I believe if you can actually see from some of in this photo, you can just see it is their driveway and sort of car parking and garage that is sort of abuts the shared boundary with the application site. But what they appear to be talking about is a sort of patio area here, which they've stated that they sit out at, but it would be the driveway that would be located adjacent to the boundary. We'll go back to the block plan. Also like to point out that this would be the single story rear extension, so it would just be this element that would be 2-story as well.
Yeah. And what's the distance between the two properties, the planned and what's there in existence?
So the distance to the boundary is 1 metre, but would be 5.8 metres to this part of the house.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the report said 9.8 metres, did it? And 10.3 metres for the other side. But I think Mr. Johnson, when he read out, did say 5.8. But am I correct? The report said 9.8, something around there.
That would have been for the western neighbour on the other side, number 24.
Not well. I thought I read 9.8 and 10.3 in the report. Am I wrong?
That is correct, but it's in relation to the other neighbour. So so this one here. So what
was the 9.8 then, and what's the 10.3 in the report? Or have I read it wrong?
So it's number 24, Chapel Lane. So the neighbour to the west would be 9.3 metres from the shared boundary with the development and 10.3 metres from the proposed western dwelling.
Ah, right. Okay. Now I'm clearer. Okay, thank you. So there's no habitable rooms then on number 20 that would be affected by the development. It's purely appears to be with the proposal, the bathroom window that they claim, even though obscured, would be open a lot.
There would be a bathroom window on this elevation, but there is a condition, I can't remember what number, that states it has to be non-openable.
Okay, and would there be other windows on that elevation as well?
So just a ground floor window here, and that would be shielded by the fence.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. Anybody else, Berna?
Yes, Councillor Skeens.
Councillor Skeens.
Just to say that I found myself in complete agreement with Councillor Fluker. I think this is a pint being squeezed, a cork being squeezed into a pint pot, and I find myself inclined to disagree with the officers on this.
Thank you very much for that. Anybody else?
No, Chairman, not at the moment.
I'll move to the recommendation then that planning application 20-00577 FUL land adjacent to 20 Chapel Lane, Tillingham, be approved subject to a signing unilateral undertaking to confirm that development will contribute to Essex Coast RAMs and the conditions as detailed in section 9 of the report. This was seconded by Councillor Stamp, I believe.
Yes,
Bernard,
right.
can we go to the vote, please? And
Yes,
if that
before we go to the vote, can I just let the committee know that Councillor Bell and Councillor Boyce have left the meeting? Okay.
Okay, rightio, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bell, Councillor Boyce. Carry on, Bernard.
Councillor Bell and Councillor Boyce have left the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so this, can you, members, can you please state clearly for, against, or abstain for the officer's recommendation of approval? Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
Against.
Councillor Beale. Councillor
Hello.
Beale.
Against.
Councillor Channer.
Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble just opening up I'm muting myself. Against.
Councillor Fluker.
Against.
Councillor Helm.
Abstain.
Councillor Hull. Councillor Hull. Oh, I think she probably has actually left me. I think she has left the meeting, members.
Okay.
Councillor Skeens.
I've now forgotten bear with me for a second. I'm against the officer's proposal.
Councillor Stamp.
Listening to the debate, I'm going against it.
Thank you, members. That's none for the recommendation, 6 against, 1 abstention.
So that has failed.
That's failed, yes.
Do you want any other vote on anything else for that, or is that it on that?
Well, Chairman, yes, we have to now, because that's failed, don't we have to
Give reasons.
No,
we have to refuse and with reasons. But didn't Councillor Fluker make a proposal?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Fluker made a counter proposal.
I'll second his proposal.
That's seconded by Councillor Skeens. We better take a vote again then, please, with reasons, please.
Chairman, if you let me come back, I think the reasons that I've proffered all relate to policy D1, and in respect to policies D11, A, B, D, and policy 8. I beg your pardon, policy D1, 8, which is all around design, quality, and the built environment. Thank you.
And that was seconded by Councillor Skeens. Bernard, can you take the vote, please?
Okay, thank you. So this is a vote contrary to the officer's recommendation of approval to refuse the application. So members, if you can state clearly for, against, or abstain. Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Beale.
For.
Councillor Channer.
For.
Councillor Fluker.
For.
Councillor Helm.
Abstain.
Councillor Hull. I don't think she's back. No, that's.
I lost connection, so I can't vote.
Thank you, Councillor. That's fine. Councillor Skeens.
For.
Councillor Stamp.
For.
Thank you, members. That's 6 for, none against, 1 abstention.
So that is duly refused for the reason given by Councillor Fluker. We move on to any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent. I have none. Members, thank you for your contribution, and thanks for members of the public for listening. I now draw the meeting to a close at 15:23. Thank you very much.